Hello, wonderful people of the internet. It has been a while. Welcome back to the Nobodies podcast. What are the Nobodies? No one really knows. We're just a bunch of nobodies that all decided to get together, have a conversation, have a laugh, have a good time. But we are back, and in this week's or this podcast episode, we are discussing a Wall Street Journal article saying a generation of American men give up on college. Quotation, I just feel lost. And, well, the question, I guess, today is, what do we have to say? But before we get on to that, let me introduce the rest of the team. We have Jason Mars.
Hello.
We have the Hero Nero.
It's good to be back.
And we have Trakky.
Hello.
Hello to you all. How is everyone?
It's good. It's good to get the show back on the road after so long.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
I'm decent. I'm good. Thanks.
Welcome back. I'm sure that our listeners have missed you all because it has been some time. But thank you all for coming back. Hopefully, we'll get back into the flow of things and see how things go. But let's get on to the topic that we're discussing today. So, Wall Street Journal published an article in September of this year, 2021, essentially just saying, that men are falling behind women when it comes to college applications in the U.S. This is focusing particularly on the U.S. But I have decided to bring this topic up here because, again, all of us in this call are university/college educated individuals. We've all gone to university. That's how most of us met. So I thought it would be great to hear the opinions of people on the other side of the pond in the UK, but just in general get a feel of do you feel as if your university degree was worth it in the end? Could you relate to why people in the US are pulling away, like why men in the US are pulling away from college? And I just wanted to hear you guys' thoughts on it. What I'll do is I'll leave it up to the table. I'll start with you, Jason. What do you want to say?
Well, interesting to say when you say that, is it worth it? As an unemployed person after 6 months after university, at the moment, no. But I think that the issue in the US is that there is a lot of factors going into it. We can talk about how competition in the education system has been removed over the last kind of decade, which has been shown to be a major reason for a lot of the downturn in terms of attentiveness or attention for young men in schools. There's also the idea of mental health, so much so that the biggest killer from about, I think it's 16 to 35 is what they call the self-harm group, which is like drugs, any kind of illness due to drugs, alcoholism, and suicide rate. And it's typically in men have all gone up, whereas every other kind of disease or kind of conditions have gone down in that time period. So it'd be an interesting conversation to see like what exactly is going on within that system. Although yes, it is the UK, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, Hero Nero, what do you think? What's your sort of baseline on this topic?
I mean, to me, it makes sense that a lot of people would kind of feel lost in the modern day about education. I mean, we don't live like we did kind of 10 years ago, where you got your degree, you come out with your degree, you know that's valued very highly in the workplace. You know what I'm saying? You got a job in any field you wanted to. Maybe it's a bit of a hyperbole there, but 10 years later, everyone's getting degrees. Degrees aren't valued how they once were. We're kind of in a situation where, I studied engineering, but everyone studied electrical engineering. I studied finance, and everyone studies finance. So, what's making me stick out compared to the other people in my, class, and if they're all coming out with degrees, everyone's doing it. It's kind of, I'd say we've oversaturated the market a bit in that regard, and I think that's why a lot of people are they kind of don't know what they want to do after university because, just like Jason, I've finished university and I'm currently unemployed, and I'm not in a situation where I can guarantee myself work in the next few months. Guaranteed, I don't know. Maybe I could find work in 6 or more, I'm not sure. But with the modern job market, I can understand why a lot of people kind of don't have faith in the education system anymore. It needs reworking. It's not got the guaranteed safety net that it once did if you came out of it with your degree. Because like the requirements to get jobs are higher and higher. And as for the mental health thing, yeah, no, I agree with Jason Mars on the mental health thing too, in terms of the mental health increasing. University really doesn't do the best job with mental health, and it never really has. It's kind of a situation where they're kind of tough on you, and university's just tough on you, and that's kind of all it really is. You kind of have to, if you want support for your own mental health, you kind of have to go find it. Now, recently, you'll get emails and stuff that's like, contact this for mental health and stuff like that. But you really don't get as much support as you think you would, and you think that, like, them knowing that in this day and age, they'd kind of ease up the education system a bit more, but it's harder than ever. So that's really all I've got to say on it for the moment in terms of my overall opinions on the education system.
I was going to say that's going to be a very short podcast.
we'll get into the debate.
I have finished my arguments. I shall now leave. Goodbye.
I mean, I don't know where this podcast is going after this. That was my opening statement. It could be my concluding statement.
What we're doing is we're getting everyone's sort of thoughts on it, and then we'll open it up, and then we'll start discussing it once what we think. So once we've heard what everyone thinks of it, then we'll pick out specific bits here and there that we want to talk about. But,
I thought I knew that would be the case. It was just kind of funny, and that's all I have to say, really.
Yeah. I feel like I have to be fair, I feel like I have the least to say on this subject. So,
well, we'll see about that.
Anyway,
Trakky, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are universities. I think it can be very important. Just depends what type of degree you get. When it comes to the education system, there's so many issues with it. Like there's a lot of issues with the education system. But when it comes to the education gap between men and women, I don't know how much of a problem it is. And let me explain myself first. So when I think of the education gap, my mind always thinks of the thing that a lot of feminists like to bring up, which is the gender pay gap. And they're like their like problem with gender pay gap is that they think that it's because of sexism in the workplace, and that's only one aspect of the gender pay gap. It's also because competition, men like competition and women don't like competition. Also because men are more likely to ask for pay rises and so forth. I think it's the same thing in the education gap. Like boys in general are less likely to listen because they're less agreeable. They're less likely to do the right amount of studying as needed. Men are also more hands-on as well. So a lot of men don't even think about going to university. They think about going straight into blue-collar work, plumbing, plumbing, being a gas engineer, being a construction worker. So even with men not going to university as much as women, men are still getting paid a lot more on average, as we already know, because of obviously I think the workforce is more suited to like men's kind of behavior than it is to women. And I don't think this is a sexist thing. I think this is more of a difference between men and women thing. So yes, I think there are issues with the education system. Yes, I think there are mental issues with men. Like the incels are on the rise. I think there's been a 20% increase of like virgins with men, and like no increase at all with women, like from 20 to 30. So that's like an issue. But when it comes to the education gap, I don't think that's a problem. I think like at the end of the day, what's the solution to this? Like, once men are earning more degrees than women, then we're gonna have some feminists talk about the education gap between men and women, and then like just like we're talking about right now. So I don't know, like it's not really possible to have it 50-50. So that's my problem with it. Anyway, that's my opinion on all that stuff. But yeah, we can get into more of the discussion about that.
Okay.
Now.
Yeah, thank you. I think my thoughts on it are, I have multiple reasons why I believe it's going down. My key thing is that the point of a degree now, a degree now doesn't guarantee you a job. It doesn't guarantee you a job in what you studied for. In any case, I know that when I went to university, what I studied is not what I'm working on right now. I picked a specific degree, but I didn't end up. I've applied for jobs in that position, and I wasn't able to get a job in relation to what I studied at university. So I felt like, well, the point of the degree, the reason why I went to university in the first place, has kind of been muted by the fact that I'm not able, even though I have the qualifications, I have the background in order to be able to and should be able to obtain a job in the field I studied for. I'm not able to. But so that makes me think, well, there's why should I go into so much financial debt for a degree that doesn't guarantee me the job that I'm looking for? Previously, you could go to university, you can offset the fee of the degree because you would be guaranteed a job, and it relates to what Nero was saying with that, you get your worth. It depends on what degree you study. It depends on. Oh no! What he was saying was that the market is oversaturated now. Everyone goes to university to have a degree, so when it comes to employers looking for people to employ, well, if everyone is done finance, then it's a supply and demand thing. There's a lot of supply, but there's not enough demand to match it. So therefore, the companies have to pick and choose between who they employ. The other reason why I think of it is because university, or I think it relates to a wider sort of a bigger topic of how our society is moving more towards social justice. That's not to say that it's a bad thing or a good thing. It might be a bad thing for men, but I think there is an idea that men no longer feel welcome in those kinds of spaces. University is what we learn from university a lot now is that it wants to primarily, and for good reason, it wants to employ more women to get higher education degrees, which is fantastic, which is great. But the counterbalance to that is that there is no guidance, there is no support, there is no tools to try and help men get into university or help them understand what they want from university. There is a lot of talk about, girl power, girl boss, do this, do that. You can get up there in the ranks, and that's fine, that's great. You do you. If you want to aspire for something, you go ahead and achieve it. But by focusing too much on one, you're completely ignoring the other side of the argument. You're ignoring that there isn't much in terms of guidance for men. And it also relates to what Trakky was saying, was that the workforce, like the hard manual labor workforce, is primarily statistically more suited towards men. Men do hard labor, they do the building, the construction, they tend to do most of the sort of the pipe work, sewage work, the stereotypical things that we associate with construction work is done by men. And on that, actually, it makes me realize something. I am in a position where I think long-termly, I think that having a degree might not necessarily be of a benefit compared to learning a trade. Because I went to university, I did my degree, I'm now thousands of pounds in debt, and I'm not earning, well, I wouldn't say I'm employed, but I wouldn't say I earn a salary that allows me to pay back that debt in a good enough amount of time. So I'm going to be in debt. Longer down the line, it might affect my ability to even get a house if I wanted to. So from what I'm seeing, I can see young people are saying, well, why should I bother putting myself in this financial debt if there's no way out of it? If it's not guaranteed that I'll get a good paying job, a decent salary, that I'll be able to achieve my aspirations. Whereas if you go into a trade will always be in demand. There will always be need for carpenters, builders, those kinds of things. And over time, you can earn a decent wage doing those jobs. So I guess to make a long story short, that those are the sort of the main points that I have with regards to why men are looking at other avenues. Because let's be honest, other avenues right now look mightily more tempting. Most people go to university they go there for the degree, but they mostly go there for the university experience. Whereas, if you actually want to think long-termly about a job or something or earning big money, it looks now that trade is the way to go. Learn a trade. But anyway, I'll open it up to everyone. What do you guys want to say?
I think I will quickly jump in and say that it's interesting because you say debt, and I think that's very interesting thing to hear, because it's like for me and the Hero Nero, we're unemployed, so we don't actually have to pay anything. So I think that's the kind of thing, is like, for me, I see it as a tax if I am then successful. I think there's a whole debate, and I think that's the thing about the UK compared to the US, which is one major difference we have to be aware of. In the US, it's significantly more expensive, and there isn't a central loan system like there is in the UK, which allows us to get that by. Now, there are many issues with the UK system. There's like the paying back, but at least we have to earn over a certain amount before we even start paying it back.
It gives the opportunity to poorer people to attend university as well, which is important.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, and one thing it does mention in the article, that it wasn't due to how much money you had. This was across financial backgrounds and spectrums, and it wasn't just white men; it was all men, and it was and that's something that's quite interesting, because I know ZRift mentioned the social justice angle, and it's very interesting that is affecting people of every background, it's not just white men feeling uncomfortable or are unwelcome in that area. It's all men. If that is one of the reasons, I think it's interesting, because I can't remember the other point I was going to make. I think it's like, we talk about trades. I think apprenticeships and have increased in the UK, so that availability has gone up. So for people to go down that avenue, but also it's something like since the Great Recession back in 2008, about 90% of all jobs have require university degrees. So although the demand for everyone's now getting a university degree, the problem is all new jobs that are being created in the job market nowadays, all of them require some kind of university degree, which then basically makes the idea of, is it sort of thing, like a couple of years ago they changed the level what compulsory education is, and it's almost now compulsory to get a university degree to do a lot of these new jobs that are coming and being created.
But a lot of these new jobs are in the office sector or financial sector or business sector. They're not necessarily a trade sector. You can jump in and get a diploma, or at least in the UK, you can sort of start on an apprenticeship straight out of sixth form or secondary and start doing that work. So a lot of the new jobs, yes, that you're right in saying, a lot of the new jobs that are created require a degree. But again, these tend to be very office-focused, blue-collar jobs. So if that doesn't interest you, and if you don't know what to do at that point, why force yourself into something that you don't know what you're not sure what you're going to get out of it at the end of it. You don't know if you're going to get a job.
Sorry, let me just jump in. So actually, ZRift, I actually agree with that. I personally think that if you're someone that's 18 or 17 and you're not sure of what to do, and you 100% know that it's not STEM, then I think you should wait off and kind of leave it and decide later on, because obviously, like everyone's talking about right now, you're going to get into debt and it's going to be hard to pay off. I actually checked how much you need to finally like get over the interest of the debt, and I think it's around like 45k to even finally try and start paying it off. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait the 30 years before the debt just writes off itself. So yeah, so like it's a huge decision to go to uni. I will say though as well is that I think that STEM degrees in general are still like worth it. But then again, I don't like the reason I don't like saying to everyone, oh, let's go get a STEM degree, because I've seen so many people in because I do engineering. I've seen some people in engineering. They go in and go, oh, I'm gonna get paid. I'm gonna do engineering or maths, and then they hate it. They hate it so much, and then like it's kind of like now like the government's trying to like force people into this sector, and I don't like that at all. So I personally feel like, make sure you know what you want to do, and make sure you know like how much you will earn depending on what degree you get.
And I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think if you are doing if you love STEM, then yes, going to the university. Like if you're doing a specific degree which requires a university, like law, it requires you to go to law school. It requires you to do this. If you're doing STEM, it requires you to do engineering. But things like social, I think a lot of things like some forms of social sciences, some forms of like the art and drama and development does not require you to have a university degree specific. It would be better if you had like industry training and experience and build up, and you can go through the certifications through that rather than having to go through university. And I think people will start to explore other means of doing it. I think, in essence, it's kind of good that men are realizing that they don't want to go to university. You don't want to get trapped into something that you don't want, that you're not going to enjoy doing, that doesn't guarantee you something, and then you'll be stuck with a lot of headache down the line. Those are 3 years that you could have, 3, 4, depending how many years, that you could have invested somewhere else on improving whatever other things you might have wanted to do. And I also wanted to say that when the other thing as well is, it's to do with how young you are, the age of when you have to make this decision. Because I don't know about the rest of you guys, but when I was, what was it, 17, 18 or something, to go to university, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew that most people are going down the university angle, and I kind of have to mold my interest into a university degree. Like when the whole process started at sixth form, I was like, oh, okay, well, what's going to earn me money? What's going to earn me money because I want to provide for those that I love and care for? Accounting and finance is what I thought. Oh, my dad, he likes accounting. I like accounting to some degree. Therefore, I might go down that route. I ended up, after going to several open days, realizing, no, I actually kind of hate accounting and finance because the maths angle of it doesn't mesh well with me. And that's how I had to go through that thought process of, well, what other things do I enjoy? I enjoy discussing, debating, this and this and this, which is how I ended up in international relations and politics. But I think at the age that you're at, you don't necessarily have you don't necessarily have that knowledge yet to know what you want to do with your life. I think you should probably want to experience different kinds of roles. You might fall into something that you enjoy doing. Rather than having to go to university based upon a hinge. Like, I feel like, the good thing is that we're now making more of a push towards apprenticeships in this country, but I feel like the sort of idea still is that you have to go to university, especially if you're coming from a third world background. I think our parents would expect us to go to university because, again, they want what's best for their children, right? So they're working hard. They want their child to be able to excel and succeed and stuff. So there's this kind of expectation that they want their child to go to university. I know if I told my mom or my dad, look, I wouldn't want to go to university. I'd rather just try and figure stuff out. That's not a possibility in my family. It was uni or not. That was the end goal. Like, you're going to uni and you're going to do what you're going to do. But
same here.
The thing
it is interesting because you do hear it from a lot of people. Like when I was in my last university, one of my flatmates was doing economics, but he only did it because his dad was like, if you do anything else other than economics or a STEM. So by the way, STEM for people out of the loop is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees. And those kind of degrees, and it's very interesting when you hear, and he was from Tanzania, and it was very interesting talking to him, and it was like, oh no, there was no way I would come, and they were not coming to this country to go to university and not do a STEM degree, and then you end up having a massive push to just do those subjects. But to go back to your point, it's very interesting you mentioned the ability to be able to do other stuff, be able to explore, and I think that is available if you do other subjects at university. So I did business, and because it wasn't as intense as the STEM subject in terms of how much work you actually have to do. So I remember, I started off doing engineering and then moved to business, and I remember a big thing for me that I realized that I left engineering getting basically a low degree, then went to business, worked just as hard, in that business degree and left with a much higher degree rating. And it's very interesting that actually there was a lot more time to me to be able to do other things. So I got involved with a lot of the societies. I got involved in the media, and allowed me to explore that kind of marketing angle or that kind of photography angle that I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd done a STEM subject at university. But also it meant I was also in a situation where I was given a lot more opportunities to be able to explore that at university, where a lot of the costs and for setting up and starting it have already been covered because they've already got the equipment.
To be fair, engineering is a free time killer.
Oh my god!
Yes.
You had free time?
I mean, I know me and Trakky's free time got pretty bad at like some points. Like, even hanging out with friends becomes like such a secondary thing at that point.
And then there's like medicine and dentistry, and that's just even worse. Like, it's like zero free time than this now.
So you have to have the passion to study those subjects. You know, you got to be if you're going to be doing that, you know, you're risking a lot of your time and effort to do that subject.
Well, that's
it's like
the thing.
The same thing with law.
Yeah, I learned that like the hard way, because as Trakky said, like, engineering in your degree is not practical engineering. It's just not. I had a passion for practical engineering. I do not have a passion for theoretical engineering. And theoretical engineering is what that 99% of that degree is. And it's like, I just want to build circuit boards and stuff. Dude.
Yeah.
Let me have fun.
Can I build on that as well? I just wanted to say quickly that so I did I'm unemployed too, by the way. But before I graduated with engineering degree, I did a placement in an engineering company, and all I gotta say is I didn't use like about 80% of what I learned in my first 2 years. So I used like a bit of circuitry, and most of my job was just hands-on building circuits and stuff like that. But we learned so much theory, so much theory, and I think this is maybe another point to say why university isn't tailored to like the male experience compared to female, because like a lot of men like hands-on, like to do hands-on jobs, like to do hands-on like learning, and a lot of it's like we have like a few labs, but 90% of what we do is theory, and I think there's just too much theory in engineering. But that's my opinion. Your turn, Jason Mars.
I think it's interesting because it's like the universities always want to try to get accreditation from the engineering company, the Institute of Engineers, and a lot of that requires you to do that learning. And that's what I remember talking to one of the lecturers once I had left, and he was like, it is very frustrating because they are very limited, and they're like, we have to teach that stuff if they want to get people to be accredited. And it's a major marketing point when you leave universities. Oh, you're an accredited engineer, and it's like, which is what a lot of things you actually need to do to go properly into the industry. But that requires a lot of theory, half of which you won't use because depending on what area of engineering or what type of engineering you end up going into. And this is even when they've split it up like from mechanical and electrical. But it's like all that kind of stuff is already like they are basically told they have to teach that. And you can easily imagine, like you said, like I remember turning up and during the first year, and I remember doing really well in the mechanical engineering, the actual building and actual just hands-on, right, how do we design and build something? And that was always the best part, which I always liked doing, was that kind of designing and building something for it to work based on the specification we were given. But there's just so much theory going around it that not just that particular design, but it's like they say, oh yeah, it's 50% coursework and 50% exam. But that coursework or additional work, you think, oh, that'd be what I build in a lab. No, it's not. It's just another exam just held earlier in the year. And so it's just more exams. And I really do feel that a lot of people do get, particularly in STEM, you get exam overloads, which means that you wouldn't be able to explore other options until after you've done and finished university. Whereas at least
So
with business, I'm not gonna not gonna go into politics or international politics because I don't know. But I remember being in business and suddenly going, "Oh my god, I've got so much free time!" And this is when I started looking at editing, going into photography, thinking about whether I get into streaming, all that kind of stuff. I was suddenly realizing I had a lot more time to be actually do the kind of explorational stuff that would, when I leave, give me other options. So now I'm looking into getting into photography roles, which is very different from doing business, and it's not what I studied. But I was able to have the time when I was at university, if I did business, to be able to actually explore those avenues and kind of get a feel for it whilst for working with some of the societies.
So to sort of bring it back onto the discussion at hand with why men are choosing not to go, I think you can kind of see that university is selling you a lie on some degree. You're kind of told that you will get a job at the end of it, that you'll have accreditation, that there'll be loads of opportunities for you. But I think we've realized now that it is not what it says on the tin. A lot of the stuff in there, a lot of the content in there, isn't stuff that will actually help you down the line. Most of the skills you learn at the job. Is the end goal. University is just another. It's just another education. You don't really. You learn the theory. You learn the practical. Not the practical. You learn the theory behind what you use, but you're only going to start applying it once you're actually out in the field. And I think that is a key thing that a lot of men just want to circumvent going around having to deal with learning a lot of the nonsense behind it. It's like, I just want to do it. For example, after I finished university, I've had to have a proper sit down and think, well, what am I doing with my life? I'm now in debt. I went to university. I did politics. I did international relations. I haven't got a job in that field. What am I doing with my life? I'm grateful I have a job, but what am I doing at this point of my life? And then I need to think about, what do I want to do with my life? So I've started thinking, maybe it is that I need to take evening college classes, maybe to learn some kind of trade, because I feel like I would enjoy be doing a lot more hands-on stuff and just circumventing all the nonsense, all the bullshit, get that out of the way, just do the job and get those skills, because again, these are also life skills. It might be something to do with how we men are biologically. You know how that bullshit goes. Men are more physical. Yeah. They're going to do something, this and this and this. Might have something to do with that. But I feel a lot more fulfilled doing stuff rather than just being taught something, and or even with my job, to be honest. Like I said, I'm grateful I have a job, but it's an office-based job. And it's a back-end kind of job. So you don't get that kind of fulfillment that you'd be wanting to do. You don't get a fulfillment of you've helped someone. You don't get fulfillment of you've achieved something, you've built something, you've done this, you've done that. I don't get that fulfillment. I just wake up every day, deal with the same shit, and then we can go to sleep and wake up next morning, deal with the same shit again. But there's no fulfillment.
So you don't feel like so you don't feel your job's meaningful. Then is that the issue?
I don't feel like I'm getting the satisfaction I want from my job. A job, having a job is like a two-way. It's meant to be a two-way intersection. Yeah, you kind of work. You're working your mind, body for the wage is what you're doing. But you don't.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I find that really interesting because I'm just going to be quick so you can continue. But right now, because I'm unemployed like the rest, I'm actually picking between two career paths. And one path is it pays a lot, but it's kind of like meaningless. Like it's like you make what you do is you make rich people more money. Another path that I'm looking at is it makes less, but it has more meaning to it and it has more like I'm helping people. So I think it's just interesting that you're saying that you don't like your job because it's not meaningful at all. I think that's not talked about a lot in careers, but that's it. You can keep going. That's what I would say.
I wouldn't say that it's not that I don't like it. I just say I don't find fulfillment in it. A job it's a good job to have, but I just don't find the fulfillment, the my calling. Can you say?
And it gets into the point where it's like, if you're not finding fulfillment in your job, then that's not a job. Exactly. You don't want to stick with that. And the unfortunate truth to a lot of that is people take jobs in this day and age. People take jobs that they hate because they have to work, not because they have that freedom of choice to pick whatever job they want.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%. You have to work because so you have to earn the bread. You have to earn. You have to provide, and it even down the line, even if we move beyond the idea of university, if to have a job, to have some kind of stable income is a requirement for being applicable on the dating market. And this topic here, this men are not choosing to go to university, it's remedied because other articles have mentioned, oh, it's dangerous that men are not going to university. I know that there was a jokey article a while ago,
I
a
saw
horrible
that, yeah.
article a while ago saying, well, women can't find suitable partners because they're A, not earning, and B, they don't have university degrees. And
You know what pisses me off so much? You know why it pisses me off as well? Because it's like, okay, we try so hard to get women to earn just as much as men, and now women are doing the same thing as men, which is date people who earn less than them. Now they're getting annoyed that they have to date someone that earns less than them. They're not going to date. You know what I mean? Like men have been doing that like for ages. Why can't they do it too?
But it's all intertwined. Is the thing? It's all intertwined. It's all the women are saying they don't want okay, men don't want to go to universities because they realize university is a waste of time. It's a lot of debt. You can rather go and learn the skill. Learn a skill. You'll start on a low salary, low wage, but as you work over time, you'll earn yourself up. Now, you don't go to university. You don't start getting. You're 25. You don't go to university. You're earning about, let's say, what, £30,000 a year. A woman, college educated, she's earning about 35, 40, doesn't want to date you because you haven't got a degree. But then 10 years down the line, you're going to be earning about 50, 60 because you have the skill, the training. I don't know how much the woman will earn at that point, but she'll still, what will she say at that point?
Yeah,
is she
it's
chasing you
silly.
because of the money, or is she chasing you because she actually likes you? A lot of...
I think the major thing is also the fact that, as shown by the fact that the amount of depression or depression-based or the anxiety and stress-based diseases growing up, and so you've got suicide, alcoholism, drug-related deaths are all increasing in men between 16 and 30. Is a great example of that. Men don't feel that there's a right path for them that suits them particularly. You can say, oh, go and learn a trade, but there's so much worry about the fact it's going to become automated that they feel they can't do that role because they think, oh, if I go into this role, about 10 years later it's going to be automated and I'm going to be out of a job and unskilled, or not skilled in terms of what they think you'll be in 10 years' time. Whether that's right or wrong, that's by to by, but that's what people think. So and there's also this idea that a lot of men when growing up were always valued on doing other stuff like sports and kind of those kind of extracurricular activities. And I think that's less so the case in women. I'm not going to say it's massively, but there is a case that men spend more time doing extracurricular stuff that isn't necessarily based on education. But then at the same time, though, it's like that's going to take more time, which is going to hold them back in the education. You also have a zero competition-based education system coming in, where there's like, oh yeah, there's no winners, don't worry about it, which demotivates them even further, increasing that education gap between actually when they get to qualifications. So we can see by the data that women are consistently outperforming men in almost every type of school education, no matter where they go. Women are consistently outdoing them in the education system by a significant margin. And now the question is, that is going to be a major thing holding men back from going to university, is actually the education. So because they feel disenfranchised by the education system, why would they continue going into the education system if they feel disenfranchised by it? And like, I've left university and I felt slightly disenfranchised by it because there's so many things you read and do in the business degree. Then as soon as you get to the workplace and you're like, oh yeah, we haven't done that in like 15 years. And you're like, oh, well, that's crap. And it's more like it feels for some people just a little tick sheet that they have to do. And it's like, well, you can understand why some of them will go into the apprenticeship, which and this thing, when we say apprenticeships, they're not low skilled. They're going into IT, they're going into office-based work where they're basically learning coding and essentially a new language when they go into it. So I remember I spent a year at IBM for part of my degree, and they said they have two main pathways for people to come into IBM. One of them is as when you get an internship, they try and keep as many interns as possible when you come back from university, and that's their main way of getting new people. The other way is through apprenticeships. So one of my work colleagues was a literal window cleaner 3 years ago. And he went through the apprenticeship scheme, didn't go to university, and is now one of their best employees because he's had that kind of real world experience of just being able to, he said to get shit done. Apologies, but that's how he phrased it. But that's him. Like he's got that real world kind of understanding of like, all right, let's just go up and talk to him. We need to get this stuff done. Whereas university is like all theory and it's a bit. How do you say
it doesn't prepare you for the real world.
No. It doesn't. It's like you don't get that kind of the skills that you would get if you go through the apprenticeship, where you just learn the tools of your like when you're in the office, learning that if you do this, you're more likely to be able to work better with other people and all that kind of stuff. But that's the thing. The university is bred for education. So many people now pick the universities based on the university tables, not actually what. For all the other factors like location, what they're learning, they just go, Oxford's top of the league boards. I want to go there, and that's it. So they are becoming ever more evaluated on just their educational aspects. So universities now prioritize that, which means, it means that people leave without having the kind of, what do you call it? I call them soft skills, like that kind of stuff that you would never learn at universities, and you will only get it through doing extracurricular stuff. And it's like, and a lot of the extracurricular stuff has now been taken over by universities, and where they're kind of like, oh no, we can't do that. So I remember being told like, you should get into if you go into halls, you should try and get on the halls committee. And I remember being told that by a couple of people who had been there, gone through university before, and I turned up and realized it was just friends, it was just mates just having a chat and lark and not really doing a good job like it was, like say 10-15 years ago. It became a popularity contest.
Yeah, a clique even.
Oh
wow, really?
I was going to say I was going to go cartel, but
considering I was on the hall committee, are you sure about that?
But yeah, it's that kind of, they get in through basically being friendly with enough people within 2 weeks of turning up, and then it's just all their friends working together and saying, the people love this, and then it's like, oh great, but now we've got people who, for example, for social events are disenfranchised because the people who are popular got popular because they went to all the drinking events. So therefore, more drinking events occur, and rather than say other kind of social arts. I know ZRift tried getting a non-alcohol based social going on, and it got no backing at all, did it?
It got some backing, but mostly from the heads. It was people enjoyed it. People did.
Yeah,
like it.
and that created that. If anything, that created that social circle for that year for them, right?
Yeah.
So that was good. That was good. That came out of it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what you're talking about, Jason Mars, is the whole alcohol thing. Like that in general is just like university culture, isn't it? Like so much revolves around go be social, go do this. Because we haven't talked about the other half of the supposed university experience, because they advertise you two things. I was going to bring this up when ZRift said university lies to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, you're guaranteed to get the job once you finish your degree, which is an outright lie. And two, and this one's with an asterisk, that university is going to be some of the best years of your life, and what they're referring to is mainly the people you meet and the experiences you have. Now, I think that is incredibly person-by-person basis and degree-by-degree basis, because, like, as we said, we studied engineering, we wouldn't have had time to do a lot of the social stuff. So that whole, like, best experience ever, I'd hope not. I'd hope university wasn't the best years of my life. I'd be really sad. As much as I did like university from a social side, if those were the peak years of my life, I don't know, why I'd get out of bed in the morning.
but what made that experience worth it? What made those years worth it were the people that you met, right?
Yeah, my friends, the people on this call that I'm talking to.
You know what I think? I think this should be like here's my opinion on university. I don't hate it entirely, but I will say one thing. I think it needs to be more of a like alternative for university. For example, like we were talking about like recently, like men are like to do more hands-on things, like to do more blue-collar work. Even though there's apprenticeships, there still could be more like alternatives, like, like dorm rooms for apprenticeships, stuff like that, and like kind of like replicate the experience in some way. Because it's kind of like, okay, you're going to university, you're going to pay $9,000 per year just so you can make friends. It's like there has to be ways to make alternative for this type of stuff, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because that's the kind of thing. Because if you're not the sort of person to visit your local pub and like chat people, or go to a night out to club and chat people, it's going to be hard for you to make friends, and that's why university is a good method to make new friends and some of your lifelong friends, like as I said, the people on this call. But as you said, it comes with a high price of $9,000 a year, and if we're not selling people on the education aspect on it, that means what we've done is essentially sold people on a friend maker for nine grand
Yeah.
for 4 years. That's what it is. Which, don't get me wrong, that's a great thing. You want friends, and university made me more social, and that's a good thing that I came out of university with. It gave me a lot of skills I didn't have going into it from a social aspect, because I was quite secluded before I went uni, and then like I made friends, and I'm not going out every day, but at the very least I'm more talkative than I once was. I'm more like able to give new things a chance, and that's because of university. And some of the best moments in my life, some of the best experiences of my life came from hanging out with friends at university. We had some great times together. So I just think it's there is positives to university from that aspect, and you're gonna get the most out of it if you're not studying a STEM subject. That's just the truth of it. If you're going for one of the degrees that gives you a lot of free time, then you're set to be like super social. Because at the end of the day, university half advertises itself as that. It advertises itself as a time of your life you really want to get social, but with your degree on top of that, it comes off as kind of disingenuous, I'd say.
On the social element of it, I think there's one thing that I want to raise, in particular with regards to American institutions. Because there's the side of the social justice point of things, and I want to make reference to a video from a few weeks ago where there was a white male that was just studying in, I think this was like a minority-based area on their campus, and he was just studying there, and then he was approached by this I don't want to particularly raise attention, but this black gal approached him and said he shouldn't be there, he shouldn't be studying there, because he's oppressing her by being there, is what she was saying. And when you see a lot of this, when you see a lot of this content and what the kinds of people talk about at university, the kinds of things that they champion at university, I would wonder, in a sense, if you get the idea of, well, what's the point? Why would I want to be in such a toxic environment? And I'm not saying that this only applies to white men. I'm saying this applies to all men, because there are different avenues as well, different kinds of arguments to make. But I'm saying, why would you want to engage yourself in that kind of environment where you can be accused of things, where you can be criticized of your opinions, even if you just want to be by yourself and do your own thing? I think the reason why this girl approached him was because he had a sticker that said Police Lives Matters or Blue Lives Matters on his laptop. He didn't say anything to her. He didn't even look at her. She approached him. So for for a lot of young men who have opinions that do not suit with the mainstream or what university promotes, why would they want to find themselves in that kind of environment? If there are men that, believe, let's go out on a limb, believe that Trump was a good president, you know that's going to be the hot cake. That's going to be the hot take for anyone. There are young men that will believe Trump was actually an all right president. Domestically, he was fine. Internationally, might have been a bit here and there. And they go to university, and then they might make a comment in a social situation. And then all of a sudden, they will get a backlash. They will get a backlash of people criticizing them because of their opinions, or they don't agree with vaccine mandates, or they've been wrongly accused of an act that they didn't commit, but no due process has been carried out, so they're just guilty until proven innocent. Why would anyone want to go to that university? Why would anyone want to go to university
I
for
will
that?
give a quick story because we were hosting a party in the hall, and it was like, okay, there's only like 12 of us, and I was like, oh, okay, and like so. One of the rooms we basically had 2 rooms that were designated kind of, oh yeah, you can use the toilets in them. And I was in my room, and it's like just chilling and just chatting with some of the other friends, and this girl came in, and she started waiting for the loo. And I was like, okay. I mean, then she brought up politics, and I was like, oh, who did you vote for? And I was like, oh, I voted such and such, and I did this. And she literally took one look at me and just went and walked out and went into the other room to use the toilet. The other toilet, I'm like, it was a very weird situation that she was like, this woman had basically gone, oh, based on your vote, I'm not going to use your toilet. I'm not going to even talk to you. And it's like...
Yeah, that was very, very
yes,
rude.
And it's like one of those things where I was just suddenly like, are you kidding me? Just because I put an X in 2 boxes at 2 very particular dates, and that's on that day I thought this, which was, I think, one of the ones was Brexit. And, I mean, that's like now 5 years ago. And it was 4 years ago at the time when she asked the question. So it was about a year ago. She just turned around and walked away. And I was like, so you're going to have a go at me and punish me for how I thought and felt 4 years ago, not how I think and feel right now, like who I am as a person right there to ask questions. And it was very interesting that and there is that kind of somewhat environment in universities that people find their own cliques. And,
I mean, yeah.
And it's like, and those cliques are very strong-minded and have a lot of confirmation bias within those groups. I mean, we can almost argue that.
I'm going to.
Anyway, welcome to the clique.
Oh, sorry, you go first. Oh, my bad.
No.
I just want to ask. Oh, sorry. You go. I keep interrupting you. My bad.
Actually, I think you were interrupting me trying to pass it on to you.
Yeah, I think I was lagging. I had lagging, so let's cut that out. Anyway, I was gonna say I actually agree with both ZRift and Jason Mars on the problem with opinions. But I'm gonna push back a bit and say I don't think it's a university issue. I think it's a societal issue as well, because I don't think it's just university. Because if you go on Twitter, go on any social media, and you express any opinion that's not the opinion of the mainstream left at the moment, then you just get berated for it. If you look on like a few day apps as well, which is really funny, you see a lot of people saying stuff like no Tories, no this, no that. So it's kind of like I don't know if that's a university issue or if that's just like a societal issue of right now, like you can't express certain opinions in like the mainstream. In mainstream, or you just get berated in general.
But yeah, universities.
What do you think about that?
The university is like the petri dish where it all starts, though. The university is where you make those kinds of connections. And
I
you meet
agree
the kinds
with
of
that.
people. You know, if you go on a dating app in university, you are bound to see loads of girls that say no Tories, only date. You know, if you didn't vote Corbyn, then you can.
It's
leave
because here's the thing. It's because people can't separate the Conservative Party from just like the extreme right. They're like, they assume that because you vote Conservative and you think that Conservative is the best for the country, that you're automatically a racist, that you automatically hate like black people, that you automatically, it's like, okay, cool. So like it's the whole like, and in a way it censors minorities too, because like, well, you're a minority, why are you voting right? It's like, shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Oh,
not
I'm
easily
not-
so
I'm
not
much.
entitled. I'm not entitled to
So
have an
funny.
opinion because I'm a minority. I'm not entitled to go against my minority. If I'm slightly conservative on one thing, then I'm not black enough, or I'm not black.
It's
Oh,
it's
wait,
the
wasn't
Joe
it- wasn't
Biden
it- wait.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the- yeah,
I was about to say that.
it's the if you
it's
don't
like,
vote
if you
for
vote-
me, you're not black. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
But that
How
pissed me off.
how he survived that? Like, that's it's amazing. Sorry, we're going off topic, but it's like it's really interesting that a lot of presidents, like if a Republican had said that, that's their presidential campaign done.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Can I ask a
double
question for you
standards.
guys?
It's double
So
standards, and that's the thing. What's the question?
Oh, okay. Oh, no, yeah, I cut off Patton. My only question is, if you think that if the university did more an effort to allow all kinds of opinions, do you think that would then have an effect on society in general? So you think online will become more acceptable and stuff like that? Is that what you guys are trying to say?
No,
It
because
wouldn't
at the end of the
work.
day, online opinions are for cowards who can't say it in real life anyway.
I think it's the other way around, because it's like, for me it's like the online stuff and the I'm going to bring media into this and talk about how in the particularly traditional kind of your TV stuff and traditional media are all now competing against the kind of ads online on social media. So their titles are becoming more clickbaity. And I think at a university, a lot of people don't do enough research. You look at the title and go, "Oh my God, isn't this terrible?"
Yeah,
And
no, I agree with that.
And it's very frustrating because there's no deep dive into beyond what the headline says. It's like a good example. If we're going back to the US, was the scary stat that Black Americans are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police. And everyone started holding it up and saying, "Oh, isn't this terrible?" and using it as the kind of backbone to some of their arguments. But at the same time, when someone used a argument that said, "Oh, but I think I'm probably going to get the stat completely wrong," but it was like 7 Black Americans are 7 times more likely to commit a crime. Both of them take into account the same factors. They both only address, say, Black American versus compared to white, and that's the only comparison. There's no additional factors like socioeconomic background. But one stat was upheld and said, "Oh, isn't this terrible?" The other one was disregarded as being racist, and that's what it annoys me, because we could do so much better with all this stuff. And I think a lot of university students come in with that kind of clickbait kind of, I wouldn't say that, I call them half truths, because it's true enough to be published and for someone to go, "Yeah, you're right," but it ignores the other half of the debate that isn't happening, that doesn't happen. So, for example, when the girl asked me how I voted in Brexit, there was no discussion that I wanted a soft version of Brexit, or what version of Brexit I wanted. It was, "You voted Brexit, therefore you're racist."
Yeah, and while I personally don't think that our university suffered from it too much, obviously that's a bad experience that you had, and that's honestly the worst I've ever heard of it, because not to name drop where we studied, but I think overall opinions were just kind of you say something, etc., etc. But if you look at American universities, and it's like that video ZRift brought up, how can that even happen? Unironically, somebody records somebody and then you just lambast them for that. And I do kind of agree. I feel like university is an outright cesspool for people like that, because they feel entitled because they have an education, so they're smarter than the average bear, and they think that because of that education that they can say whatever they want, and they're in a circle jerk of people who agree with them. So you've cancelled out all the other opinions from other people. You don't want to hear it. you've found your clique, and that's that, like, political wise. And I can agree that university attracts a lot of people like that, especially in America, because like American media is very famous for taking the mick out of, like, you know, like a
Uneducated
university
American.
yeah, like university, like liberal.
It's just literally like a
students.
Democrat. Like when it was interesting because I've just been reading the book Shattered, which talks about how Hillary Clinton lost the election, and it's very interesting how they have when they were talking about demographics, it's called the uneducated Americans. It's not the didn't go to college. It's it's uneducated.
Yeah,
And I
say
think
what.
that very terminology implies that those people aren't smart because they didn't go to university.
Yeah,
College in this case.
Well, America is always you're either one or the other. That's just how it is. The dichotomy in America is if you are not this, you are that. And I just want to add, like, I feel like a lot of people feel like going to university means that you are now smarter than everyone else. Going to university is not a sign of your intellect. It's just a sign of your ability to absorb information. And again, depending on the degree. Because some degrees, you'll go to university and it's just like you're doing A levels at school all over again, and you're just regurgitating information on paper in order to receive accreditation. It's not university. I think is no longer about questioning the thoughts, questioning the minds, which is what it should be. University should always be about questioning what currently exists, and then offering other means of doing it, other means of going about something. This is why what got me into sort of the politics and international relations side of it is, well, what exists at current? Why does it not work? How can we improve it? What can we do that's different? That's why I wanted to get involved in that. But a lot of university, it's no longer about that. It's more what exists and why is that existed better.
It's funny because it is just like that whole we take the piss out of the fact it's like, oh yeah, you're not smart enough to watch Rick and Morty, and that's how.
that's unironically what like university students are like.
Exactly. It's like, oh, I went to university there, like, and there is that kind of sense of like oh, I'm better than you. And it's like you do realize Rick and Morty is like one of the most popular TV shows, and that's what happens. It's like if it's most popular, then clearly a lot of people are smart enough to watch it. And if a lot of people go to university, then a lot of people are going to have degrees. But it's also very interesting. You talk about a lot of films talk about, and a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And it's almost like we in the UK are almost like it never crossed my mind that I wouldn't go to university. Because for so long it's been a easy path, mainly because tuition fees allow people of all backgrounds now to go to university, and it's like that ability of anyone can now go to universities really changes how people view it. But also compared to in the US, and the fact that a lot of people just can't afford to go to college, and the fact that a lot of parents, when they're earning money, have to think about, I want to send my kid to college. And that is always in that mindset. So I think that's a very interesting thing that we complain that we pay $9,000 a year. They pay what, 25, something like that, if not more, a year. £25,000 a year for, I think it's Harvard. I might be wrong. I'll quickly.
Jeez.
So yeah, it's like no wonder people in the US are pissed off. It's like when the whole people are basically being told, oh, you didn't go to university, therefore you're uneducated. Well, no, I just chose to work on my dad's farm.
Do you know what? I think as well. I also think that university at some point is going to mean a lot less than it does now. So for example, there's a lot of like online like certificates, online degrees, stuff like that. Like like you can learn anything like university, you learn online. And I feel like at some point, the employers are going to realize, wait a second, I could just get them an online degree. I can just teach them that way, and then they don't have to go through $9,000 in university. So eventually, universities are gonna die out. I'm gonna be honest. That's what I think.
Trakky, your university degree already means nothing, because look at how many employers that will ask for you to have a university degree. It's a pick and choose. Previously, when you had a university degree, it was an exclusive thing so that you could get a specific job role. Now, every single employer, or most sort of, like I said previously, most office-based employers will want a degree of some sort. The university degree is just another means of getting to a point where you're deemed more suitable for a job role. A university degree no longer has a purpose of you did it because you wanted to learn, because you wanted to do something, because then you can go to that specific role in your life. Now it's just you have to go to university. Doesn't matter what university you go for, unless it's the big three, the Oxford, the Cambridge, and the London School of Economics. If you go to those ones, you're guaranteed a job in almost any place you go. But
Durham has entered the chat.
yeah,
Durham has entered the chat.
or Durham, yeah. But it's like if you going to university now is essentially just you just kind of have to do it if you want to do an office-based job. That's the end goal. Put yourself in debt because that's what they want. So
I think that's why IBM have set up this apprenticeship scheme, and I think it is interesting that a lot more employers are looking to do something like that and introduce a kind of way of bringing on experienced people in other fields and then get them to convert to an office job through apprenticeships. Because I think a lot of companies do realize that actually there's a large amount of people whose jobs are becoming automated and they're skilled and dedicated and hardworking, but they aren't necessarily skilled. And I think there is more pathways for that to happen post-university. Now, I think there's a whole debate, and I think for me, I still think university is worth it. I just think people just need to be more aware going forward, because I think all of us were like, you're at school, and the schools basically go, you're going to university, right?
right.
And you go, oh, I haven't thought you're going to university, right? And it's like, the school kind of guides you to going to university, because essentially it's the default, and if you're not going to university, you've already made up your mind and already got a plan, at which point, and only at that point do the schools kind of go, okay, fine, we get it. So it's definitely the default from the education sector to get people to universities, and a lot of their measurements are, we get these people do these grades and go off to do university. But it's forgetting a lot of other stuff, and bring in education cuts and the fact that a lot more schools are now being measured by Ofsted and whether they're good or bad, and that's all based on education, not extracurricular. And it's like more and more, I think schools are now becoming about education, not experiences. And I think university is now reflecting that.
Yeah, I'd say as of right now, it still is like, it still feels like it is the most important way to get into work, as less valued as it's getting. I kind of do agree with Jason that it's the default, and it's for people who, kind of are a bit more lost, but like maybe the degree can help them find a way, because at the end of the day, you're only not going to university if you have your future set out for you. And university in this day and age is kind of for those people who are like... It's weird that the article's like, I feel lost, so I'm not going to university, because I'd argue a lot of people go to university because they are lost, and they kind of do go because they want to extend their education, because if you finished at, 18 you finished college... which, for our American viewers, college is different from university. So yeah, for our... you finish college at 18, what are you doing next? And there are more opportunities for people who don't want to go to university, but it's still not... They're slowly increasing, but it's not the norm. We haven't made it the norm. And I still think there's a negative stigma for those who don't go to university. I think there will be for at least a good number, a good number of years, and I think that, as much as I hate to say it, people coming from other countries, I doubt they'll ever change their mind on that, because that's the reason they're coming to your country, raising families and stuff. They want to get their kids educated. That's never going to change. So it's really only going to be the locals who who are going to try and change the system in that way.
I'm gonna go out on a
And
limb. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's not. University is actually not worth it. It's not worth the financial investment that you need to make. I feel like at that point in life, yeah, you're being swayed to go to university. You're being pushed to go to university. But I feel like you should just take a bit of a break. Don't put yourself in that kind of financial difficulty down the line just because you're being swayed to go there and so that you can explore and do this and this and this. I feel like you should explore a different kind of job opportunities a lot sooner. I mean, a lot of universities are, like you've mentioned previously, Nero, are sold on the idea of the experience that you have while you're there. A lot of people will go to university because I can drink, I can meet mates, I'll meet friends for life. Yes, that's great, you can do that, but that shouldn't be the main reason you go there. I feel like if you're lost, don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to make it difficult for yourself down the line. Like I said, I feel like I'm in a position where I would rather have learned. I think I would maybe to some degree rather learn a trade at this point, rather than take up another degree or something down the line, because I don't feel like there's a point to a degree anymore. If I can if I can learn
I don't know
lifelong
about that.
skills, if I can learn lifelong skills such as building, or carpentry, or God knows what, unless I'm doing a STEM specific subject, which I will say, unless I'm doing something that requires a degree specifically in order to get that kind of experience, I just feel like
I agree now. Yeah, I agree now.
I just feel like don't put yourself through that.
I'd also think that I find it interesting that the cost. I think in America it's 100%. I can understand the cost being an issue.
yeah,
But in the UK, it's a little bit more like, well, I know a friend of mine who went to, he went and did acting. Went and did acting at the at university. Did a lot of acting, got a degree and got out. He knows he will never pay back a penny for that university degree, and he's got the degree, but he's
Right.
not going to pay. He knows he'll never pay it back.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that's because, and it's all because the role, because it's very much acting gigs. So if it's like these like few months where he earns a lot of money, where the actual cost of say going to the university is actually relatively low in terms of like what comes off your pay. But then at other times, if he's not working, he doesn't have to pay it. So I think the idea is, so for example, if you don't get the use of out of university, you don't pay it back in the UK anyway. I think there is an argument that it should be the point of what you start paying should be increased to the point where, oh yeah, you should be earning a significant amount of money, not just it's just below the entrance university entry level jobs.
yeah. And here's, sorry, go on.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that kind of that nip and tuck for me. It's like if you go to university, you say you would pay $9,000 a year, but if you then go on and then do like work that don't do anything with the degree and end up doing a completely different job that isn't necessarily high paid or whatever, then you don't pay for it. And I think it's a little bit nip and tuck, but
Let's be honest, like the debt issue, it's more just an issue because a debt exists,
Yeah, but
not because
it exists in it.
But that's it. It's not the actual paying off the debt. It only occurs, as Jason Mars said, when you're earning enough, and even then, it's more because you're spending a long time with it. Not that the payments are ridiculous, because you're making smaller payments just over a very long period of time. And if you don't like that, then I can understand the whole wanting to skip university altogether. But if you're the sort of person that's like, well, it's only so much of my salary, it's not a big deal, then and it's helping you get a better job, then I can see why you would go university. And here's the thing, what you were talking about, feeling lost. If you feel lost, should you go to university? I'm gonna give you two answers. In America, no, because as Jason Mars says, the American system is completely different with the payment and stuff. But in England, I feel like why a lot of people who are lost go to university is because in this country it's really easy to go to university. It's stupidly easy to go to university. You have to perform. You don't even have to perform that well at school because there's university for every kinds of like education barrier. So university is easy to go to. You don't have to make any payments up front. So what's stopping you from going? Unlike America, where it's kind of like they don't have the loan system as I don't know how it works, but I know it's not as generous. Huh?
Can I add on to that afterwards? After you done?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's easy to do, and that's why a lot of people who are feeling a bit lost go to university in this country, because a lot of them want to kind of spend the next 3 years maybe deciding where they want to go. And obviously, unfortunately for you, you didn't get that answer from university, but there are a lot of people that did. So, is university worth it in this day and age? I think I am inclined. I think it's degree by degree based, and depending on do you have a passion for what you want to study. If your answers align with both, if it's gonna help you find a job, definitely, and you're passionate for it, then you should go to university. It seems like the most logical option, right?
Yeah. So all I want to say about that is that what Ziva said before about is it not worth it or not, and obviously what Hero Nero said. My only opinion on that is like it depends. Like just like Hero said on what degree it is. So if it's art, if it's like humanities or something like that, I personally don't think it's worth it, because it's at the end of the day there's not many jobs that you could out earn the interest rate on your debt. So you're technically gonna have to pay the entire 30 years. But again, if you don't care about the debt, like Hero said, then that's fair. But if you're taking a degree in medicine, law, engineering, STEM in general, business, anything that earns you a lot of money, then at the end of the day, when you get to the high amounts of like earning, like 60k, medicine easily get there. Business, you can become a banker and easily get to that around that amount. Then paying the debt off becomes negligible. Like you don't even notice that it's gone because you earn so much. Because at the end of the day, there are some degrees that no matter what, there's some trades that earn less than some degrees no matter what. So for some degrees, it is worth it going to university. Even me saying this now, I still think university is a scam. Okay, it's scams. We have no choice at the end of the day. Like £9,000, no matter what anyone says to me, will always be too much. But at the end of the day, it's like, what choice do you have? Like, uni still helps you out more than some other paths in life. So that's my opinion. Anyway,
I do kind of agree with that. It comes off more like, I hate to say it, but it does come off more as like necessary evil, where it's like university can sometimes be the easiest method of getting a job, and sure, that's coming out at minimum £27,000, but in a way, in this country, it's still the default option. So, but I'd like to ask Trakky something. For in terms of you said the degrees that aren't worth it, like art, humanities, which I totally agree with. But do you think that you should go to university taking those degrees if you were selling them on like, it's for the experience, man. You're going to have loads of free time. You're going to see your friends. Like, would you recommend people go to university for that?
Well, the way I answer is the way I answer. If I had a child and or daughter son, and my daughter son said, "I'm going to uni to party and have friends and family," I'd probably look in the eye and tell them, "No, fuck off. You're not going to uni for that." So in my opinion, the answer to that is no. Because here's my opinion: if you go to uni for art, I feel like I've seen so many artists now. Like we have the internet now. I've seen so many artists, build Instagram, build social profiles, and then they can earn more that way than the art degree that puts them in debt. So I don't know. Like in my opinion, I don't think humanities isn't worth it.
You're either talented or you're not. You don't need a piece of paper to tell you that you can draw good.
But then in that situation, you can consider university a kind of a transaction. You go there, you meet people, and you build networks based upon those people. And as is the truth with workplace jobs, a lot of it will be based upon who you know. If you know the right person, your entry into a job is going to be a lot easier, even in terms of art, drama, or humanities subjects. If I know someone within the who works within the EU, me applying for a job to work within the EU is probably going to be a lot easier. Or if you know someone that is an actor and has made it successful, they might recommend you to work on a show or work on a TV program. It's so you could argue the opposite of that on that basis. Yeah, if you want to go to university to meet people and hang out and do things, well, it's a great way of networking.
Yeah, I agree. Connections are like one of the most important things in terms of finding work. So you're definitely right on there. There's definitely an element of luck to it, for sure.
ZRift.
Go ahead.
I got a question as well. My question is the same as Hero Nero. You have a daughter or son, and they say, "I want to go to uni for the experience." What do you say to them?
I'll say, look, that's your choice. If you're going to go into that debt, that's your choice. I'll ask them, what degree are you picking? And if you're just going to university to drink and do that, I personally, I would say no. I'd say rather than go to university, just go and do a trade instead. If it's like, oh, I want to go to university because I wanna, I wanna meet the mad bad men. My bros are going over there as well. Every man's going. I'd be like, well, what's the point? What are you doing that for? You're just wasting money. You're wasting time. Nah, don't worry about it. Because don't worry, I won't even pay it back. Because the government's gonna give me the money, innit? I'm like, no, what are you doing that for then? What's the point? Why can't you go learn something like long term that you will benefit you in the long term in life, rather than investing. And the other thing that is important to me is university is a time sink. It's 3 years. These are 3 years that you could potentially use to explore something else. Now, Jason has mentioned it before that he went to university, and when he did engineering, he wasn't able to do to have the time to study or to test out different kinds of extracurricular things. But when he did business, he could, and that's great. That's fantastic. That's what you'd want to hear, is that you can use that time to try out different things. If you're into photography, if you're into streaming, if you're into all different kinds of things. Because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I was at university, part of the things that I wanted to do was to act, to stream on YouTube, to do those kinds of things. Yeah, I didn't pursue it after university, but the knowledge that I obtained, the experience that I obtained from there will help me should it ever come back to that point again in future. And I'm grateful for that experience, 100%. But if my kid was to come up to me like, I'm just going to go to uni because the mandem's going and I just want to vibe with them at uni, I'd be like, well, do you innit? That's your debt, fam. That's your debt. That's your responsibility.
It's definitely a case of it's what you get, what you put into it. And I think that not enough people realise that they have to put in a lot of work and a lot of out from that external stuff to make university worth it. And I think that's kind of that you have to be aware of that going into it. So, for example, I from engineering to business, I suddenly went, oh, I've got loads of free time. What do I want to do with it? I tried American football. I would never have tried and played American football if I hadn't gone to university and it was there. I wouldn't have done proper sports photography and done photography for the sports events. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to take photos for a UEFA youth competition. But that's the thing. The only way that happened was because I made it happen. And I think a lot of people are turning up to university and kind of just going with the flow and not realizing that actually to go and to get the most amount of money, you have to do all this other stuff. Now I can go away and say, oh, look, I've got this portfolio. And I'm now doing a sports photography role because I can go, look, these are the photos I've taken. What do you would you allow me to get involved? And I think that's really important, is that you have, university may have many faults, and I think a lot of men decide to go, oh, try and do something else, something more practical, or do this or do that. But I think that at the end of the day, the university is what you make of it. And if you want to go to university and it gives you the time to be able to explore it, which you wouldn't be able to do at work. You're working 9 to 5 every day. You don't have that time. At university, you have that time. But if you're not doing something crazy like engineering, at which point you're doing it because it's necessary to get accreditation and all that kind of stuff. And I still think it's worth it. So if you're going to, I'm answering the same question, and if it's like, oh, my son and daughter's going there to have fun and enjoy it, I would say you also have to realize that this is what's going to happen, but you're going to get what you put into it, and hopefully it won't just be alcohol. But there's like so many leadership roles. Like you can go on community. I would say go into society committees because they're a little bit more less clicky because they've had people generally seen around society and get promoted that way. And that's how they get in as a leadership role. Something that you can at least say, look, I've organised this and that. And then use that kind of time to build that community that you, again, will have that network of people you've worked with before and what they're doing and how, again, as ZRift's mentioned about how networking is 9/10 of the battle, particularly when it comes to work. And I think that's the key thing is, for a majority of people, I don't think they get the most out of university. However, at the same time, I think you can go to university and it's definitely worth it, particularly in the UK, and particularly if you're doing like a subject like business, or even if you do humanities and art, you can do other jobs because you have that free time to be able to do that, or you'll be able to learn a skill or a language or something else, or heck, you can learn the courses for sign language there, which you could do and learn, and all that kind of stuff. You have to put the effort in though for that to work.
Yeah, okay. That's actually that's a very good point, a very underrated point, I'd say. Let's talk about that. I'll back that up. I think university, I'm going to agree that it's kind of the last time you have enough free time to kind of pursue a hobby or like build your skills in an area, because once you're done with university, you're expected to work, and you could make the argument, well, you'll be unemployed afterwards, you'll have plenty of time to do that. True. But there's a big difference. Usually, at university, you're there, a lot of your fees are taken for you because of the loan. When you're at home unemployed, you're usually probably living off your parents. So you're kind of on their time. And, so university is good, as Jason Mars said. You learn a bunch of new stuff. You try a bunch of new stuff. You see what's for you. If you took university out of the equation altogether, what time do you really have to try all those new things? Because if you start going to work straight away, you don't have all that free time. You've got the 9 to 5. And most likely, you're not applying any kind of hobby pursuing from after your work, because you're like, I've just worked all day, I'm exhausted, and that means that all that's going to be on your weekends, and you're not really going to be doing it on your weekends either, unless you're the sort of person that needs to be doing something every day. That is probably one of the best and most underrated elements about university. Is I think all four of us here tried out a bunch of new stuff we never thought we'd try at university. If I didn't go to university, I don't know if I'd have tried anything really. Like, I got into D&D because of university.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know
Same.
if I ever would. I don't know if I ever would have tried D&D if I never went uni. Like, if I just went into work and one of my colleagues was like, come spend 3 to 4 hours, and that's a short session, by the way, 3 to 4 hours, doing a D&D session, you'd be less inclined to do it because you're like, my free time's so limited, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. By university, you have all that time to try something like that. You have all these societies that can help you build on your skills that exist. You have all of that, so that is a very underrated element to go for going to university. But then you do have to look. Yeah, it's $9,000 a year. You're going to be doing your degree at the same time. Some degrees won't let you build those skills as well because they're too time consuming. So it's something to think about. But I think it is a big net positive for university because it's unique in that sense that not many other education systems are really going to let you build your skills like that, because all of these hobbies, because in secondary school and in college, you don't kind of have the variety you have at university as well. Like, sure, I mean, no, actually, I don't know. I don't think anyone did D&D at my secondary school, so it's not like I ever could have gotten into it through that. You know what I mean? So I do thank university for getting me into some of the stuff that I am into today.
I think I thank university for like molding me into the person I am today. Like before university, Nero said before, I was the same as well. I was very antisocial before university, but like through university, I kind of learned a lot, kind of met a lot of people, kind of learned a lot about myself. So I do like that experience. Like, that the university experience is a unique one. I will admit that. But the question really is that is it worth $9,000? That's the really hard question. For me, yes, it was, because I feel like I became a person that I wouldn't have become without uni. But for a lot of people, they might not need that. Like, a lot of people are just already okay, or already outgoing and okay with themselves without university. So it's person on person basis, I guess.
Like they were doing house parties before university, and they're going to be doing house parties after university. It's just who they are as a person. So it's like, why are you bothering to go? I guess.
I want to add because
sorry, I got it for Zero. It's very interesting. Actually, I remember just suddenly thought about it. I remember going to the amount of equipment that's also there at university. And you think about all the facilities they have and all this, like, we had some really high-tech facilities at our university. And the only way people would ever be able to get hands on that equipment is either through university or they went to a private school. This might be the first time that a lot of state schoolers, people who grew up through state, have everything paid for the government, we actually go, oh my god, here's a rugby pitch. Here's a cricket pitch. Or here's a top-of-the-line design suite. Oh, here's a music suite with sound cancelling windows so I can do recordings. All that equipment was there at the university for us to use, which for a lot of state scholars would never have had. So I think that's also another aspect we need to bear in mind, that yes, we're saying $9,000 a year. A lot of private schools deliver less for $9,000 a term. So we're talking like £21,000 a year, but we've been given like top of the line equipment at universities for $9,000 a year. Sorry, Zero, I interrupted you.
No, that's no worries. I think what I wanted to say was, I feel, because it does feel like I'm kind of on the opposite side to everyone else, where I'm saying that, you know, university might not be worth it, but I do want to say I am grateful for the time that I spent at university. I did learn a lot from university. I learned a heck of a lot, and I went through so many different kinds of situations that made me to the person that I am right now. Heck, even the basis for this radio show came from university. Everything. Some of the people in this call will know that if it wasn't for some of the things that I did during my time at university, creating the radio show that we had while we were students on campus, we might not have had the podcast that we have today. The experiences that I learned from managing, from putting all of that together, I'm still using that to this very day. This is kind of the fruits of the labor of my time at university, amongst other things. So I'm not going to say that I didn't find university a useful experience. I did, and I thank the Lord that I went to it. I met wonderful people. I met amazing people. I did things that I could never imagine myself doing. To perform. I never ever could have imagined myself doing that. So yes, there are so many great and wonderful things that you can learn and try and do throughout university that will stick with you for the rest of your life. And I just wanted to add that little bit in as well, because again,
cool.
There is good.
So who are these amazing people? Can you introduce us?
Oh, well, I think there's three of them right here, ain't it?
Bruh.
I don't know if
there's only one me.
There's Trakky, there's Hero Nero, and then there's Jason Mars. Three wonderful people. Jason, three wonderful people that I've met at university that made my university experience an amazing experience, which is where I am.
Here's the thing.
And Sam too.
After all that, can you truly... Oh my god, Trakky, no.
I love that took a beat for you to
all I remember is going to the canteen and see a lot of pointing at kitchen utensils and stuff from that young man. He was a strange one. Anyway, ZRift.
Yes, fire away.
After that amazing heartfelt speech you gave,
Mm-hmm.
are you still gonna say university's not worth it? After that experience you had?
Look, it's what Jason said. University is what you take from it. University is what you make from it. You can go there and you can do your degree and do nothing at all, nothing else at all, and come up with the degree. You can not go to university. You can learn something else, and you wouldn't have to worry about that financial debt that you go into or blippity blippity blah. University is what you make of it. The same with adult life. You know, it is just what you make of it. If I was to be put in a position where someone said, okay, well, I'm going to give you university, if let's say I was isekai'd into the freaking past again, and someone said, well, I'm going to give you university, or you can learn and do a trade, I would still go with university. I'm not going to deny that. But
Yeah,
I'm saying
same.
I would think a lot more before I made that decision. I would think about the opportunities that are out there in terms of learning a trade, in terms of going to college, whatever else there is, before I went with university. And I would know that is there. I would know that those opportunities are there, so that I could also maybe even pursue that while I'm at university. Take evening classes at college, or do something, because the university will give you that time, depending on what your degree you do in asterisks, to explore and do what you want to do. That's how I would go about it.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I'd
I think-
definitely do that again if it was up to those two.
Yeah, do university again, man. University was lit. Fuck, boy.
Was lit as fuck, man.
It was lit as fuck, boy.
Okay, I think there's a good way that we could I don't know end it, but like end it, because on the article, let's imagine we're going to order. Let's imagine you're talking to that man on the article who feels lost, and he's deciding whether or not he's going to university. Like, if you were talking to now, what would you say to him? Like, what would your advice be to that person?
Sit down and think about the positives and negatives. Outweigh it. Yeah, especially because this is specifically the US, because we've been talking from the angle of the British education system. For us in Britain, it's going to university, like everyone has said earlier, is kind of a good idea, because you're unless you earn something out of it, you won't be paying back the debt that you accumulate. I get it. But because of America, because it's a case of America, and because of how much it costs to go to university up front, how much of a social dichotomy there is at university, how much of a challenge it is at university, how there's not enough guidance and enough sort of there's not enough hope. I would say, if you're going to go to university or college in America, you have to think about it. You have to sit down with yourself, be true to yourself, and be like, well, would you want to pursue that, or do you want to learn something else instead? Because again, that's the choice you have to make, and I will just be there to support you in your choice. That's how I would do.
Don't a lot of people nowadays, like in America, like just start OnlyFans and like pay it off that way?
You're gonna bring this shit up now. You're gonna bring this shit up now.
I'm just saying.
Hey guys, subscribe to my
Wait.
OnlyFans.
Wait, that's important though. OnlyFans makes men lonely. Okay, it definitely contributes to the loneliness in men. That's what I
Lonely
think.
fans.
But let's. I mean, I was gonna make a relevant point with that. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm talking to the guy now. I'm like,
Okay.
yo, do you have a girlfriend? Is she on OnlyFans?
What's
You're
she
making-
gonna what,
Wait.
you're gonna just
So you're going to
call
She'll
her
make
out?
you
you're gonna whore your
wedding
girlfriend
doll.
out for you. What the freak?
How
Like,
much
hey,
did-
why
how
don't we
much-
get her to start up an OnlyFans to
Hey,
pay
baby.
your education?
Hey,
What-
baby,
what
I want to go to
so-
college.
so
Start selling feet
What
pics.
happened recently was that
Get the tits out for the uni.
Here's the thing. What happened recently with that Twitch leak, right? Didn't they
Yeah,
find out like
go on,
all
man.
those people were like millionaires or some shit?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot of like, damn, get on that if you really want to go university. Earn that in like 5 weeks.
Do you even need to go to university at that point? If you earn that amount of money doing Twitch, OnlyFans,
True,
or whatever it is,
but why-
what's the point?
But I think
But why
that's
if
the
they want to
thing.
pursue that though?
But,
Yeah, sure.
but then that's the whole thing, that like there's so much romanticization around doing it yourself. like we talk about Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, people always, they say, oh, but these guys didn't go to university or college. Oh, I can set up an OnlyFans. I can do this. We forget that you're basically selling the lottery to these people who become these millionaires. Like we're talking about, yes, there might be like a few of them have become millionaires, but there is about a absolutely colossal amount of people who don't make it. Heck, we're not going to suddenly start a podcast and suddenly raking in the money. It's going to take years and years and years. And that's the thing. It's like people, I think nowadays are when they become disenfranchised from the education system, they think, oh, because OnlyFans exist, Instagram stars exist, people like Logan Paul exist, and all that kind of stuff, where actually they've kind of got famous just off themselves and off their own back, that actually they could do it too. But it's like people forget that the odds of becoming that kind of person are as likely as the average person becoming a professional footballer or winning the lottery. It's that kind, and I think when people will say, oh, I'm not going to go to college, they have that in their mind. I know from trying to sell photos and stock photos, I'm not going to make money from my photography and selling them as stock photos. The only way I can actually earn money from my photography is if I go to a company where they want photography work. And it's like, I think we have to almost realize that I think when people become disenfranchised, particularly men, they go, oh, I can just do this. And you can't just do that. But there is that nice mid ground, which I think we've all been saying is the apprenticeship route. Because you typically surrounded by people of similar age going through that system. So you'll typically get that 18, 19-year-old funds going out every Friday and so on, all that kind of stuff. And that's the thing. When you're at work, it's 9 to 5 and it stops. When you're at university, you have that coursework over you the entire time. You have that exam coming up, lingering over you the entire time. A great example is how my mental health was affected by that. When I was at work at IBM for a year, I didn't gain a single pound of weight. And that's how my mental health usually appears. Anyway, how it shows itself is I put on weight. And when I was at university, every year I put on about a stone. Go to summer, lose it. When I was at work at IBM, I didn't put on any weight. Because it's that different kind of stress that there is actually a time for you to stop and breathe. Whereas at university, it's a constant, relenting stress. And I think that's
that is so true. Yeah, that's really good. Like 9 to 5, after 5, that's it, you're done. But uni, it's like always, so you're 100% right about that.
Wasn't it? It's like, oh yeah, I've went to school, but now I have homework, and then there's the exam at the end of the course, and like now I have to revise for the exam, and then the overlooming pressure of the exam. Oh god, I do not want to go back into education.
Yeah, fuck that.
Nah, me neither. I'm done. I got my masters. I don't want to ever go back again.
So, gentlemen, let's begin. Let's wrap this show up. And get our closing statements in. So, Jason, what are your closing statements with regards to single men? You men in the US are choosing not to go to university. Why? What is your statement? What's your closing statement?
Oh, I think men are increasingly becoming stressed and disenfranchised by the education system. I think that university and college is what you make of it. And I think if people turn up lost, they end up not making the most out of it. I think that I agree that university is probably not necessarily worth it a lot of the time. But at the same time, it can be a massive launch pad for you going forward. And I think there's an understatement in terms of the effect of the mental health, the effect of almost that looming presence of either the coursework or the exam and all that kind of stuff that is going on and will be on you, compared to, say, doing an apprenticeship where at the weekend, it's the weekend. You're not going to get bothered. Whereas the weekend at university is that kind of, oh crap, I've got the coursework due on Monday or whatever. So it is, and apprenticeships are more closer to what real world experiences. So I think if I saw that guy, that's basically what I was saying. That's the judgment call is, Do you want the ability to try out lots of things and make the most out of that university and that environment to do so, or do you want to get into work and learn real world skills?
Okay. Hero?
Yeah, I'd probably tell the guy that if you're feeling lost, there's a chance, no guarantee, but there's a chance that you might find the direction you need at university. There's a lot of extracurricular stuff you can do, a lot of societies you can partake in. That might guide your future. I can't guarantee that though. And you need to be honest with yourself if that's worth, $9,000 a year. Obviously, we've talked about that. There's a lot of good to university. There's a lot of bad to university. The education system needs reworking from an education side of it. But the social aspect of it is good enough to the point where you could say, is it worth going here for that? And as I said, I made some of the best experiences and some of the best people came from my time at university. But some of the worst experiences from an education standpoint came from that university too. So it's university's a mixed bag. To this guy specifically, I don't know if I could recommend it, just because how America is so different. But yeah, if he was in England, I'd definitely recommend him. Like, hey, if you're lost, just try out university. It's a time sink. It's 3 years, but at the end of the day, you might learn something you didn't know that you knew about yourself before, and that's important. But I would warn him that if people that judge you based on your political compass bother you, maybe don't go.
Okay. Trakky?
I feel like Jason and Hero have said everything I want to say too, so I'll just add on to what I think as well. I think one thing is that if you're going, I think 2 reasons. One, if you want to go to uni for money, I'd say no, only if it's STEM, law, business, medicine, or dentistry. If it's not any of them, I'm going to say, and you're in the US, I'm going to say uni isn't worth it. You're not going to pay off the debt. You're not going to earn as much as people who don't even have a degree do humanities. So I say don't do that. But second hand, if you don't care about the money, if you're not interested in like earning a lot of money afterwards, if you're interested in having an experience, a unique one, if you're interested in growing as a person and becoming someone that you might not have become without uni, then I say definitely go to uni, because you can, like them two have said before, you can learn a lot of things about yourself. You can experience a lot of things that you won't get the time to experience if you have a 9-to-5 job. So that is my opinion on that.
Okay, thank you. And my opinion is, well, because it's the US, I'd say if you feel lost, then you need to have a sit down. You need to have a proper review of what you have available for you. Don't be coaxed into going into university just because everyone else is doing it. Have a think. Talk to family, friends. See what kinds of jobs they're doing, how they got into it, and have what do you want? Think about what you want to achieve from that. Think about, if you want to go down university, you can down the line, but you don't have to do it now. University is open to all age brackets, all age groups, so it doesn't have to be at this point in time. You can go once you've figured out a bit more, once you've earned a bit of more money or experience. That's up to you. But don't rush into things. Take time and do what you want to do. But to the hosts, I would like to say thank you all, because we have now reached the end of this episode. So thank you, Jason, thank you, Hero Nero, and thank you, Trakky, for joining me in this session today. And to our listeners, I would also like to say thank you for your time for listening to the show today. If you enjoyed it, we would very much appreciate a like and a comment on the video. Share it with your friends if you think we had some insightful points. Share it with your colleagues. If we said something controversial that you didn't agree with, then let us know down in the comments, because hey, we're here to talk. We're here to discuss it. Whatever your opinions are, put it down in the comments. Let us know. And if you're a guy that is struggling or doesn't want to go to university, let us know why down in the comments. And if you have a girlfriend, tell her to start an OnlyFans and sell feet pics. That way you can go to college. But apart from that,
I can't believe.
Make me money, woman.
Jesus Christ.
You're acting as if a lot of people don't do that.
Well, I don't know anyone that does that. But they do.
I'm just saying it's quite funny. It's like, oh yeah, we want to, yes, we girl power, girl boss, yeah, woman, show your tits and get me money.
Only fans is girl power, man. It's their choice to do that, and they're showing their body to the world.
But on that nutcase, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for the show. We'll see you on the other side in the next
Farewell.
podcast. Take
Find
care.
my OnlyFans.